It's live, boy. It's live. It's live. Um. Okay. Let's pick back up here. Um. We was at copy, mark, trade name, and this form will secure your name so that no one can use it. And if they do, they will need your permission. If they use your name without your permission, then you can sue them for damages. The second thing you have to require is an executive letter. That tells whomever that you're doing business with, whether it be a corporation, whether you got a job or something like that, whether you have some sort of these IRS, something like that, or a job or something like that, that you would like them to know, whether it be a school or whomever one may be interacting with on that commercial level. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about commerce. Okay? That you are no longer a minor. You're not a ward to the state anymore. You come of age of maturity. Okay? And you will now be taking control of your estate, both corporal and incorporeal. The body and as well as the land itself, whatever your material possessions may be. Now, you can also do a UCC-1 financial statement to secure one's property, but you want to be very mindful of how you proceed with that UCC-1 because that is also a contract that you're filing and you're sending it into our European brothers and sisters, seeking their approval, seeking their permission to sign off on it. Okay? And if you're asking them for permission, then it's really not, that's not the same thing as just taking charge of your own. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying, I am. Okay? You're more or less asking them to recognize, and it's their choice if they want to recognize or not. So, that you might be getting yourself into a contract that you might not want to be in. So I wouldn't recommend a UCC-1 financial statement. But many people do it, so you can look into that if you choose. Okay. Now when it comes to the debt, whether it be school debt or mortgage debt or taxes or IRS, stuff like that, buying houses and cars, there's other things that can be used. Okay? Now, these other things that can be used are you must understand that there's a such thing called an exemption account with the Secretary of State. And there's things that you call a bill of exchange. And these are 4 documents that can be used to pay or to discharge a debt or a bill. Whether you buy a house, a car, or taxes, or anything of that sort. And number 1 is the bill of exchange. Must be made by you. It is an unconditional written order signed by you directing another person to pay a certain sum of money or demand or at a definite time to a third person or a bearer. A check is the most common example of a draft. Okay? The second document is called a promissory note. It must be made by you, must also be made by you. It is a written promise by one party, the maker, to pay money to another party, the payee, or the bearer. A note is a two-party instrument, unlike a draft or a bill of exchange, which is a three-party instrument. The third document is what we call accepted for value, the foundation of remedies available for commercial demands made by the United States. The writing on the remittance form that comes with your bills, thereby paying the bills with the instrument that the department sent you with. Accepted for value, exempt from levy. And you must understand one's exemption ID. That's the Social Security number without the dashes. Then write in your personal prepaid by levy number. That is the number on the back of one's Social Security card. Sign it, then print your name. And print one's name. Okay? Accepted for value is accepting an instrument for value and returning it is notice to the issuer that the endorser is not providing new value, but is converting the issuer's obligation to pay the instrument into the value to pay it itself. Okay? Thereby making the instrument negotiable. Alright? Number 4 is a private bond set-off. It is a confidential obligation or promise to a settlement or mutual debt or a debtor's right to reduce the amount of a debt by any sum the creditor owes to the debtor, the counterbalancing sum owed to the creditor. When you are using these instruments, or when someone is using these instruments to pay bills or loans or etc., one is discharging. Now, some people say, well, what is discharging? Well, discharging is a method by which a legal duty is extinguished, especially the payment of a debt or a satisfaction of some other obligation. It must be written in red and blue ink. Okay? So, it's very important to understand these things. Now, remember, all this information can be found online. Private bond set-off, exemption ID, accepted for value, promissory note, bill of exchange. Alright, all these things can be found online. Copy mark, trademark, trade name, exemption letter, UCC1 financial statement. Okay, and then once you get into that, then you can open up a trust and you can put your stuff in the trust. All right. What you call it? There's many type of trust accounts. You could choose one of these trust accounts and put your stuff in those. Okay? That's how it's done. Okay? Let's see here. Now, I have some pictures here. Remember, everything is done with credit. That's why you get credit cards and you get Social Security numbers. So I don't know if people can see this. But where is it? That is what you call accepted for value. You see one right here written on the bill by the bill company, red and blue. Alright, this is a private bond set-off. It's kind of blurry because, you know, that's a bill of exchange. Okay? This is a promissory note. Okay? This is a executive letter. This is a UCC1 financial statement. Okay? And this is a copy mark, trademark, trade name, where it secures your name and anytime anyone uses it. Okay. The bottom line is everything we handle as money is indeed credit. Okay? Credit. Everything is credit. Alright? Credit is our pocket paper currency that you call the dollar bills, right? That's credit. And unlimited credit from our birth certificate bond. Now that we have a full understanding of this, now we can go into land and other properties. Okay. So, before we jump into that, I wanted to touch on all of this. How is all of this stuff possible? A lot of people I know is like, how is all this stuff, where all this credit come from? Well, you first got to get into how that everyone has an exemption account. And an exemption account is an account made by everyone at birth. Right? Since everything is credit, we're not dealing with gold and silver and copper. We're not dealing with the raw resources anymore. We're dealing with credit. You go to the bank. And the banks don't have gold and silver and copper in there. No. They used to. They don't have it in there anymore. It's just all credit. So, everyone has an exemption account. An exemption account is made for everyone at birth with a certain amount of what that person expects to make during its cycle. Okay, and that's why people send you prepaid credit cards in the mail. Because it's already prepaid, meaning it's already there. The credit is already there. Right? That's why you got a high credit score, a low credit score. Here's a credit card for free. All you got to do is sign it, agree to the terms, and use it. It's free. You ain't got to pay for a credit card. They give it to you for free, and the credit is already on there with a certain limit. And you can buy whatever you want. And then you pay off on it, right? Then they give you more credit. And then your credit score goes up. Right? Your credit score will go down if you spend all the credit on the credit card and you don't pay it off at all. Right? Then your credit score will go down. So they might not loan that person any more credit. They might have a difficult time getting another credit card or getting a loan from the bank because they say you ain't going to pay it back anyway. Right? But it's free. You understand what I'm saying? It's free. It's a loan, basically. Now, like I said, when everyone is born, everyone files that their mother fills out a birth certificate at the hospital, and reserve exemption account was created for them at that time. That birth certificate bond is worth billions. This account was created without you or your mother's or father's permission. It's created automatically for anyone who seeks to do commerce and trade within the United States Corporation because, as we all know, the United States Corporation is dealing with credit now. So if you're seeking to use this credit and exchange it, then a credit account is automatically created for you with your Social Security number and your birth certificate. Okay? When the United States declared its bankruptcy in 1933, all United States citizens were declared as collateral for the corporation's debt. With that, the United States also created a new way for them to pay. In 1933, the United States declared that they would pay all their debts with the money they received from their labor, birth certificate, and Social Security registered number by what is known as your one's reserve account. The bankers loan out credit and not money because there has not been any lawful money since June 5th, 1933. Or some people call it when the stock market collapsed. They call it the Depression, but it's really not that. It's the stock market was crashed in 1928. That was done intentionally, not by accident, but it was done intentionally because the people saw what happened. What the people saw, what was going on in the corporation, and people saw it declining. So a lot of people was running to the banks and taking all their money out. Okay, and the banks was was sitting there, but they had no finance in it because people took all their money was out. So some of them makes the banks what you call it collapse. Banks were collapsing all around the country. So what the president did was shut down all of the banks, all right? Come up with this new deal, bring in the credit, Federal Reserve Bank, and then dispense this credit to all of the banks, and then told everybody to give back their gold, give the government their gold. No one's allowed to hold gold as they're a citizen. And then in exchange, then they'll be given this unlimited amount of credit in the banks now. And then after that, then the banks were allowed to reopen. So people could go to the banks now, and the banks have more credit to use. That's what happened. Okay? The exemption account is one of the accounts for having to pay for anything. What we use for exchange today to pay things on a daily basis is our own credit. One's birth certificate bond became a negotiable instrument just like any security agreement under the UCC. The bonds are hypothecated and traded on the stock market until their value is unlimited. Okay? People all around the world buy and sell one's bonds every single day. That's what's being traded on the stock market. Is the movement of the commodity. The movement of it, not the commodity itself. Right? Not the goods. It's the movement of the goods. Okay? And who is moving the goods? The people are moving the goods. So it's the stock of the people that's the stock market. Okay? Now, all that credit that is created is technically and rightfully the people's, but the people didn't create it, so it's not really the people's credit. But you can say that, but it's really not that because it was the private bankers who created the credit. So it's the private bankers' credit, and the people are using the credit in exchange for their labor. You understand what I'm saying? But some people can claim that the credit is theirs because the credit is based on the people. Without the people, there would be no credit. You see what I'm saying? Because the credit needs something to stand on because it's fictional. Okay? It's make believe. The finance we use today, the dollar bills, is fake. Right? It's an agreement because we say it's an agreement. It has no value. The value of the gold. Gold's value don't change. Silver's value don't change. Copper's value don't change. Alright? Platinum. You call it diamonds, oil. These values don't change. Raw resources. That has value. Dollar bills have no value. It's make-believe. They just make it up. Okay? So that's why they need the people to use it for it to have value. Alright? One's exemption account is identified with a 9-digit number that you will recognize as one's social security number without the dashes. This is one's exemption and identification number. Okay? Mailing these documents that I talked about earlier, bill of exchange, private bond set off, promissory note, accepted for value, all right, with a red tab or certified mail, make these documents valid. Okay. So, continuing on here. Let's look at the term tenant. Tenant states that one who holds or possesses lands or tenements property by any kind of right or title. Okay, he holds the possession. It's not there, they're holding it. Okay? Then you have the term minor. Minor is a person who has not yet reached full legal age of 18, a child or juvenile, infancy. Okay? The term guardian is one who holds the legal authority and duty to care for another person or property, especially because of the other person's infancy, incapacity, not understanding, or disability. Okay? So for them not understanding what's going on, they need a guardian. Or if they're too young, they need a guardian. So many of our people are being classified as wards and held in wardship, Islam. But when we're held as wards, we're also being classified as minors or minority. And minority is not numbered. Minority is not being of understanding of what's going on, competent to be to carry on your full affairs, to govern yourself, basically. So people call people wards and minors because they're not governing themselves. It has nothing to do with what you look like, black or white, yellow or green, blue or purple. That is irrelevant. Okay? Now let's look at guardianship. The fiduciary relationship between a guardian and a ward or other incapacitated person, whereby the guardian assumes power to make decisions about the ward's person and property. A guardianship is almost an involuntary procedure imposed by the state onto the ward. So the state becomes a guardian of the minor when they are not understanding of what's going on and are not of the age of maturity. And this is why the schools do not teach the truth. Because when you don't know the truth of what's going on in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school, you don't know the truth. And in college, you're still classified as a minor, even though you might be past the age of 18. You could be 22, 23, 24, 44, 54, and still be classified as a minor because you're not understanding what's going on and you're not governing yourself. You're allowing the state to be your guardian and supply you with the food, the water, the clothes, the shelter, everything that you need instead of doing that for yourself. Alright? That's what minor is. Okay? So if we put all these pieces together, what happened was the Moors well, the Moors who, first of all, stepped outside these principles. The Moors who stayed in line with these principles of love and peace and truth and equality, and stayed in line with these treaties that were made and these agreements, did not get disinherited. It's not possible. But the Moors who stepped off of these principles and away from these principles did get disinherited by both corporal and incorporeal ways. Alright, by their title and of their lands. Incorporeal is unalienable rights to the land through status of a Moor. Meaning incorporeal means you're not calling Moors anymore. Now you're calling black, Negro, colored, African, and Indian. Corporal means the inheritance of the land itself by descendants through the titles. Your Moorish titles, Il, Bey, Dey, Al, and Ali. These are Moorish titles. Or Pasha, or Muhammad. Right? These are our titles. Okay? And this is why the corporation labeled the Moors as black, Negro, colored, and Indian to try to separate the connection from the right to claim the land through the title, through our status. This is also why, and in addition to that, this is also why they placed European family names on the Moors, like Johnson and Prophet and Smith and Jones, right? Jefferson, you know what I'm saying? To disconnect from inheriting the land itself through the titles. Alright? Il, Bey, Dey, Al, and Ali. Malik. Tariq. Muhammad. Alright? So it was done through both ways. Okay? Status of the Moor and then titles through the name. Okay? Thus, there is a reason. Thus, when we do not openly and publicly object to what's going on, therefore, under acquiescence, that means disagreement but not speaking out against it. And sulkage, that means not speaking at all. Acceptance was assumed by the state, and they then began to classify and put the Moors in a category of minor mentally, thus placing certain Moors as wards under the state, under the guardianship of feudal law, guardianship of the state. Okay? And that's also why, as you see, you have that term driver's license. We're going to get into that next, because driver's license is also a contract. We don't need a license to drive. It's another contract. Okay? Driver's license is a privilege. Okay? We can travel. We as conscious beings, as humans, have freedom of travel. We can travel wherever we want. Whether we're walking, right? Whether we're biking, whether we're in a car, whether we're in a plane, whether we're in a boat. We have the freedom to travel wherever we want. That's number one. However, if you're doing commerce and trade, then you need a license to do that. You don't need a license to travel. You need a license to do commerce and trade. But all U.S. citizens need a license to travel because this land is not theirs. America is not their land. Thus, they need a license to travel through the land. And that's what all the treaties did. Okay? A traveler is a person who passes from one place to another. That's a right, unalienable right, constitutional right, some people say. A driver is a person who steers or propels a vehicle, motor vehicle. That's a privilege. A driver's license is a state-issued permission authorizing a person to operate a motor vehicle. Now, a driver's license is not one's ID. Okay, because our ID doesn't expire. Does one's identity expire? No. You are who you have always been and who you will always be. Your bloodline, your hereditaments, your ancestry, you are who you are. It doesn't expire. But a driver's license expires. A passport expires. You see where I'm going with this? A state ID expires. A green card expires. You see what I'm saying? A working visa expires. So what is actually expiring? What's actually expiring is not your ID. It's the contract. The contract between the person and the corporation. The person and the state. Whether it be Ohio, New York, Florida, California, Hawaii, wherever they may be. Okay? So it's the contract that's expiring, not one's identification. Okay? Once, as we more recognize and realize what's really going on, we recognize that we don't have to pay for anything. Everything is already ours. All we have to do is come out of minorship or wardship and become competent. Take charge of our estate. Rightfully claim what's ours and just be our true self. That's all we have to do, family. Alright? We have inalienable rights. Our European brothers and sisters do not have unalienable rights. They have privileges. Alright? Europeans were adopted into the order. They didn't make the order. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this up before the phone turns off on me. That will conclude this segment. We will continue on with the next segment, family. Peace and love, family. Peace.